drugs and crime in media propaganda crap. Now, hear me out on this. I've heard from numerous parents and people throughout my life that, and from media itself, that people like to say that shows like The Sopranos, Sons of Anarchy, Weeds, good show, tend to feed into influencing youth and people that are into that type of culture, and they like to blame it on media. Like a couple years ago, no, I don't have the years, by the way. A couple years ago, people were saying that this crime that happened in the States with these couple of teenagers was something that was repeated from off of The Sopranos. Well, that's nothing but crap. That's a good lawyer that likes to that likes to say, well, the media is desensitizing people. Do I believe it is a little bit? Yeah, I get a little bit of that point. But I don't think the people are honestly looking at what the writers write. Because people like to say, like, Weeds, the show Weeds in its prime was promoting drug use amongst youth and blah, blah, blah. Now, I get why they're saying that on the short term, but really think of it. I've watched, and I own a few seasons of Weeds. I own a few seasons of Sopranos. And I also own seasons of SOA, Sons of Anarchy. Now, hear me out. Do I believe those shows can get crazy, get a little bit violent, or throw people through a loop? Yeah, but that's only because they're being fed all this propaganda that the media is influencing stuff. So they start to believe it themselves. Now, if you really study what the writers have written, okay, nothing ever works out. Spoiler alerts, by the way. The only show that kind of worked out was Weeds, because at the end, everybody got back together and it ended with them smoking a joint. Like I said, spoiler alert, so don't bitch at me. But, that's the only show, but that took even a weird turn, and it you had Shane killing the wife of the one drug lord, who actually that actress is now connected to that thing with Sean Penn and El Chapo. Okay, now really think of it. Okay, then you have Sons of Anarchy, where again, spoiler alert, Jax ends up dead. Okay? So how exactly did crime and drugs work out for the character of Jax? He had his wife being killed. He had his best friend being killed. He had to kill numerous people. Well, I shouldn't say had to, but hear me out. What I'm saying is, it never works out for the majority of crime people and crime shows. Like, I mean, even Sopranos ended with a supposed gunshot with Tony Soprano. Again, spoiler alert. But really look at the shows and study how they're written. The writers are more or less, if people would wake up saying, don't get into heavy heroin drug dealing, don't get into all of that, because you end up dead. I mean, Walter White did, granted he's a character, but what I'm saying is you've never seen one show where these main characters go off into the sunset. Even Dexter, even though that had nothing to do with drugs, it did have to do with some crazy serial killing. I didn't end up watching the whole show because it was just, I can't watch killing shows, but I can watch crime shows. Even that show, I do know how it ended because I had to go back and at least watch how it ended so I knew what was going on around, as the saying goes, the water cooler, right? Dexter took off into the sunset, never saw his son again. His sister ended up dead. His one wife ended up killed by anyway. those shows, the crime never pays, even in the movies. If we didn't have, like, you see all these movies being made about big time drug dealers, big time mafia guys, okay? And some of them are true stories. Actually, true stories sell a lot better. But if the young people watching those shows would really think about it, and like I've heard young people say in the past when I used to be a partier, oh man, I just want to be looked. Imagine being like that guy Frank Lucas from American Gangster. Look at all the money he made. Blah blah blah. It never worked for him. He ended up in jail. George Young inspired the movie Blow. Never worked out for him. Ended up in jail. He just got out like I think 2 years ago. So if it was really that worth it for these guys that are even the true people, then then they wouldn't have these shows made about them, because you wouldn't be able to write about it because they wouldn't have been found. El Chapo, I mean not El Chapo, but the guy that preceded him more or less, Pablo Escobar. Look it up. He ended up dead. If it wasn't for that show, you wouldn't have Narcos from Netflix. By the way, congratulations, Netflix, on the free plug I just gave you. So, think about it. These criminals and all these parents that say, oh, well, it glorifies the life. No, it teaches you what not to do. Now, that's not to say don't be a small-time person and respect God's plant and smoke it after you've been working for a hard day. That's fine. But don't be one of those guys that's like, yo, sesh. You know what I'm saying? Think about it. Really, people, study the writers. Study Orange is the New Black. Again, that's based on a true story. I mean, they took a lot of liberties, but the woman that it's based on, it didn't work out for her. She ended up in jail. Think about it, people.